Roleplay movies are a relatively new phenomenon of unscripted narratives, accomplished by role-playing on game servers that's captured by players. This is a snippet from Mr. Moon's A Better Tomorrow.
Well, we were in contact with an operator of yours. Went by the name of Denry. We're with the Safe House. Down the road a bit to the south. North of Severgrad.
Oh, this is a safe house. Wunderbar. This is wonderful, yeah?
We're still waiting for a new contact. Are you...
We know. That would be me. Heinrich Kaiser. I am your new contact.
the doctor?
Please come in, gentlemen.
You won't find them on Netflix or anything like that. It's a new genre for movies, TV shows, and documentaries that doesn't exist yet. It doesn't even have a wiki entry, or anywhere have I seen it actually defined, but it exists. It just doesn't have a name. It hasn't been properly cataloged and categorized because, well, the concept is still being pioneered and is not in our widespread consciousness yet. Before I go on any further, RP movies are the birthchild of RP servers. I made an extensive review about what role-playing servers are in this clip, so if you're not familiar with the concept of role-playing online, just watch this video. Now, back to why the movies RP genre is special. It's special because it's unscripted. The footage of the players recording their gameplay captures real improvised moments between role players that can be edited to a narrative that could be a movie, TV series, or a documentary. Okay, so let's imagine the whole process from scratch. Let's call it how to create a simple RP movie. First, you find an RP server that you like. You might have to submit an application or write a background story to your character before being accepted. Then, you create a character. You record your character experiences in the game, everything, just in case you won't miss anything that you might want to use later. Personally, I have 2 hard drives. One of them contains 4 terabytes. Eventually, something happens. Let's say your character gets in trouble with the wrong people and you get shot to death at the end. There, you have a movie. A movie with a grim ending, maybe a short movie, maybe not the most exciting movie, but a movie. You capture the drama of your reaction, other people's reaction, and the action in between. For all intents and purposes, that's essentially a movie. If you can tell a story in an understandable manner, that's a movie. It doesn't have to be good, but if we're introducing a new category, we have to make sure it's good. Getting a good movie is a whole other story that may require long playing time to develop more intricate relationships between characters and even participation in server-wide events. In addition, players could collaborate their footages. Even admins and game masters can add their footages to create one amazing film. There is one major challenge to making RP movies, which is continuity. So back when I played on this RP server, I couldn't play every day. My character had an important role in the story, but on days when I couldn't play, the story still progressed, and suddenly I had holes in the story. I wasn't in every event that my character should have been in, because I, as a player, couldn't log in frequently enough to participate in those events. This is just one example about how continuity can be broken. Players are humans and humans have life. They may have lives in different time zones, which makes it all the more problematic. Sometimes not even everyone could show up for an important event, and their presence may create a hole in the story. Where were they when that fight broke out? In game situations, we typically make excuses for them. Say they were sleeping, for instance. But it doesn't always make sense. I mean, does it make sense that they were sleeping while their fort was being attacked? It's tricky. Continuity is one of the major challenges that plagues the concept of not only RP movies, but role-playing in general. One way to combat it is to try to coordinate playing times behind the scenes. This may hurt the spontaneity of just being able to log in whenever you want, but sometimes spontaneity has to be sacrificed for the sake of continuity. In my situation, the game master who was running the story just wasn't able to give me a concrete time when he's gonna be conducting those important events, despite my character being a key figure in the story. He preferred to run events spontaneously, and I didn't have enough time to sacrifice as to what was required of me, so I had eventually quit and never got to play out the end of the story. If I knew I had to log in a certain date and a certain time, it would have been easier to manage my playing times, but spontaneity takes its toll. So there is no simple solution other than coordination and consistency with your playing times. As I've mentioned, in the game we tend to make excuses for characters that are not there but should be. The best excuse I saw is the fact that we play in a place full of anomalies. So every time something like that happened, we'd just say, oh, it's an anomaly. It's not a solution, but it was a decent way to handle it during roleplay session. When it comes to RP movies, worst comes to worst, you just try to edit it in a way that would make sense to the viewer. There is also the issue of microphones. A bad microphone is noticeable, and DayZRP just, well, it wouldn't work. There are plenty of RP servers that are text-based, but a roleplay movie like that would just be like a silent movie, which is unlikely to have any appeal unless voices are recorded post-production, which makes the whole process clumsy and sort of defeats the purpose. Roleplayers use animation often when they can't express something with their voice alone. VR would improve heavily on it since players can just use their bodies to animate themselves, which would be fantastic. But that can only happen once good roleplay servers show up in VR, and that might take some time. In the meanwhile, VR chat shows us what could be in the future. But for now, if there is no appropriate animation to what you want to do, a solution I saw is that players describe their actions of what they want to do in a way that sounds natural. Like, I'll give you a hug. So even if a hugging animation does not exist, it's very clear what the characters are doing. There is also the issue of, well, just how pre-planned and unscripted the whole RP movie is. The whole interesting part about RP movies is the fact that it's not scripted. That's where it gets tricky. Admins, game masters, dungeon masters, whatever you want to call them, they run the shot and call out the story. The players are the ones that react. Some players may be more involved in the behind-the-scene process as others. In this scene, I was told what the initial scene was going to be, and that I'm going to be on a truck, and that there was going to be a big explosion. I was playing a key character, and was explained what's going to happen. The thing is that the most interesting behavior in RP movies are the player's unscripted behavior. The more you know behind the scene, the less interesting it is to watch you. Unless you're making a behind-the-scenes documentary that captures how people behave and respond to occurrences in RP server, that could also be interesting. But the point is, it may be best for RP movies to indicate who are those clueless players that are interesting to watch, who are the key characters who know the behind-the-scenes stuff, and who are the admins who control and know everything. Creating an RP movie worth watching is still a lot of work. This genre is slowly pushing itself into our consciousness in baby steps. The biggest selling point that it has as opposed to movies, and I can't stress this enough, is the fact that players' reactions are natural. They're role-played, improvised. They don't know what's gonna happen. This brings me to my final point, permadeath. I've spoken about it before. But if respawning is in any way an option, that may defeat the purpose of RP movies. I mean, when we watch movies, we realize that the heroes are mortal. But when we watch RP movies, well, we know that if you die in a video game, you can just respawn, so what's the point? I mean, if no one can die, then if you ask me, that's not a movie worth watching. And that's not a knock on the RP movies that have already been made. It's just a fact we should keep in mind moving forward. So obviously RP movies have a lot of challenges to get through to produce a good one. I challenge the role-playing community to start creating movies and get the concept of RP movies further deep in our consciousness.